Freemasonry, they say, is an ancient and honorable fraternity. And Freemasonry stretches back, we know, to at least 1717 when they went public. And we have written documentation that shows that they've been referred to or talked about well before 1717. So odds are that they've been around for hundreds of years. And as the legend goes, when the Knights Templar were suppressed in 1307 and finally eliminated with the death of their Grand Master Jacques de Molay in front of the Cathedral of Notre Dame in March of 1314, that was the end of the Templar Order, and they scattered off into the sunset, never to be seen again. Of course, we know that that's not true. They did scatter throughout the world. They went to Scotland and fought under Robert the Bruce. They went to Portugal and continued their service there. They went to Germany. They went to all kinds of different places and continued their mission. And as legend has it, which hopefully we soon have written documentation to attesting to, they had a hand in creating Freemasonry as well as the Rosicrucian orders, which are what I refer to as cousin orders esoterically. Now, Freemasonry as an esoteric order is one of the what is called the lesser mysteries, as is Rosicrucians. Though the Rosicrucians do delve into the greater mysteries as well, Freemasonry is pretty much solidly a lesser mysteries organization, though most of its members would probably disagree with that and say it's just where we get together with our friends and we have dinners and pancake breakfasts and such. And that's true for a lot of them. For a lot of Freemasons, that is what Freemasonry is. But extending its roots back, many of us believe it comes from being the custodians of the modern day custodians of the lesser mysteries. Now, what does all that entail? Well, we have all kinds of different esoteric texts that have been written, hundreds upon hundreds of esoteric texts that have been written. And it can be a very confusing subject matter to delve into, as many of you know or have followed my channel, and I've talked a little bit about it. So I will be discussing things from an esoteric Freemason standpoint going forward. So if you are a Freemason and you're curious about some of the esotericism that is represented in the Blue Lodge, this might interest you. If you're just curious as to, in general, what the symbolism might mean, this might interest you. If you don't believe in any of that stuff, that's perfectly fine. Maybe you'll find this interesting, maybe you won't. Don't know. But I am the Desert Viking. I am an esoteric Freemason, and I belong to several orders, and have been a lifelong student of the mysteries. And today, what I want to share with you is the Qabalah, the Tree of Life, and how that relates to the Freemasonic degrees. So up here, over my shoulder, we have what I would call the standard view of the Tree of Life. This is the standard array that has been given. And this was made popular by the Order of the Golden Dawn, which was established in roughly 1888. And this particular configuration comes from a set of books on Egyptian mysteries written in the 1500s. And so this is kind of what they use for Hermetic Qabalah, and this is therefore the primary image we're aware of. The first part of today, what we're going to discuss, is simply that, like anything in esotericism, there is not just one way or one version of something. There are, in fact, multiples. And with the Tree of Life, that is no different. This is something that I had to overcome in terms of learning and getting over my own dogmatic view of where I only wanted there to be this one thing fitting in this one box, and that doesn't always work out that way. So in the 1600s, there's another array we're going to look at here in a moment called the Ari array, and that is written by a very famous Kabbalist who has slightly different take on how the Tree of Life should look. Now, I'm not going to go, this isn't the video to kind of go over those differences. What I'm pointing out is that there's multiple versions of the tree of life you may run into. And it's good to explore where they came from and why they are what they are. I prefer that one, which for reasons we'll discuss, is how they lay out the Hebrew letters. And there's only one path going from Malkuth, which is the very bottom sphere, to Yesod, which is the purple sphere, the second sphere there. Whereas you can see in the graphic, in the standard array, there's multiple paths coming out of Malkuth. They kind of take some paths from the tree and moved them around a little bit. Plus the letters aren't in the same position. And there are reasons for that. It's more of a mathematical reason. And if you believe that mathematics is the divine language of the gods or God, then that makes sense to you. I prefer the more Hebrew alphabet approach personally. However, just be aware that exists, and we're going to be discussing a different array, one that may not be seen as standard and may be a little bit different than you are used to. Now, Freemasonry itself, if legends are true, deriving from the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar were a lot of things. One of the things they were custodians of mysteries that they had obtained while in service to the Crusades over near Jerusalem and in Egypt. And they're not the only ones, but they discovered things and they brought that back to the West. And it was charged of the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians to carry those mysteries on. But you can't do that blatantly. And why is that? Well, because back when the Knights Templar were suppressed, any of those types of mysteries or teachings were deemed blasphemy and heresy, and you would have died for them. So everything had to be kind of made into allegories. And Freemasonry, no exception. In fact, Freemasonry is all about allegories. Everything we do is about symbolism and allegories and purification of our character. And that's what the lesser mysteries are all about. The lesser mysteries are not lesser by any means. And the lesser mysteries take quite an amount of time to go through and allow to do their work, purify your spirit, detach you from the material world in such a way where the material world is not your primary objective any longer. Now, being in the material realm as we all are, this is a divine experience. But there comes a time where we're ready to move on. And that's the lesser mysteries are preparing you for. And Freemasonry is one of those. And again, the Rosicrucian order also does similar things in a different way. Qabalah, alchemy, both of those things you'll hear quite a bit in esoteric books, discussions, letters, anything you can think of that's conveying information. You hear those things quite a bit. And how do those relate? Because it seems like you have a lot of different subject matter that all would be dealing in different things. Like, how does Qabalah and alchemy even relate to each other? And how do those relate to Freemasonry? And the answer is, well, quite tightly, actually. They are speaking a language of symbols. And so that's what I want to delve into. How is the Qabalah, how is the tree of life dealing with anything with Freemasonry? Where's the correlation? Now, in Blue Lodge, we don't really deal with the Qabalah explicitly. I am not here in this video to discuss secrets or any of that. I'm not betraying my obligation. But my focal audience right now are other Freemasons who may understand the words I'm using a little bit more. But we'll just say that while the Qabalah and the Tree of Life aren't explicitly worked with or talked about in a Blue Lodge, the symbolism is everywhere. The symbolism is right in front of you right now as to what I'm talking about. And alchemy is a process of taking some base metal and turning it into gold. Spiritually, the base metal would represent us, and gold would be our higher self, reuniting with the higher self. A process that we call the great work and creation of something called the Philosopher's Stone, that famous stone that was said to be able to turn lead into gold. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, well, you've heard of the Philosopher, the Sorcerer's Stone, but the Lord Voldemorts in this world are a little bit different than those depicted in that story. But the Philosopher's Stone is the end object of alchemy and creation of that great work, or one of the things. There's many different things you can create in alchemy, but that's the one of the great works is the Philosopher's Stone. So what I'm going to show you next is going to be dealing with a different array of the Tree of Life, and we're going to discuss how that plays a role in Freemasonry. Okay. So what we have here is the Ari array. And again, this came from, I believe, the 1600s. And so this is a little bit different. The spheres are the same. And we're not going to really go over the spheres and what they mean, but I've numbered them for you. And I've applied what's called the Queen scale color gradients to them all. So each sphere on the Queen scale has a meaning. And I've pulled 4 Hebrew letters and applied them to their paths. And I've also obtained images of alchemical symbols representing the elements that the Tree of Life is conveying, especially as it pertains to Freemasonry. Now, the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons, again, they're both lesser mystery organizations. They both instill that purification of character in their own ways of doing things. And one thing I will say, so Freemasons make use of triangles and Rosicrucians make use of circles. And what that means is simply, in Freemasonry, we take this tree and we divide it into triangles, into 3 spheres. And you can see, well, there's many triangles here, but just 3 main triangles we're going to talk about. Whereas Rosicrucians, in their degrees, they move through each individual sphere. So it's a little bit more granular and more practical, whereas Freemasonry is more wide and more as a foundational base. They are both excellent organizations, however, and the lessons you learn last several lifetimes. Now, on this Kabbalistic Tree of Life that you're looking at, why this one draws me is because in the Hebrew alphabet, there are 22 characters. In the biblical Hebrew alphabet, there are 22 characters. There are no vowels, only consonants, other than, well, one can argue that like Aleph, which is the beginning, is a vowel, but it doesn't have a sound, Aleph, the first character. It's usually put next to a vowel. In a word, vowels, they help you pronounce something, and the consonants hold the information. And that's how Hebrew works. So when you write Hebrew, there are no vowels. They use dots to represent vowels to help you pronounce them. There are 22 characters in the Hebrew alphabet. And on the Tree of Life, there are 22 paths, plus the 10 Spheroth, making 32 total paths, because they also considered a Spheroth a path. The spheres themselves are a path. And there is a hidden 33rd path. That's called Da'at, and that is situated in the abyss. And on the image to my over my shoulder here, that shows that hidden Sephiroth above Yesod, Da'at. It's a false Sephiroth or a partial Sephiroth, depending on who you talk to. Well, we're not here to talk about that one. But yeah, that makes 33 paths. So the number 33, of course, is important. If you follow Freemasons, you know that in the Scottish Rite, we can obtain the 33rd degree. And that is an honorable degree that not everyone gets. Actually, most Masons will not ever reach the 33rd degree, but the 32nd degree is what you obtain through the Scottish Rite. Now, we're talking about Hebrew letters. When you take those 22 Hebrew letters, there are 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, and Shin. There are 7 what are called double letters. They have double meanings. And there are 12 what they call elemental letters, which are your standard typical, they're just letters. They have a lot of information in and of themselves, but they're just letters. They don't have anything else going for them. So I've pulled the 3 mother letters here, plus I've pulled Dalet. The 3 mother letters you can see are on the horizontal bars associated with 1, 2, and 3. Dalet sits in the middle on the path connecting 1 and 6. And Dalet is Hebrew for door. And that is significant because when you cross that area right there is called the abyss. And we go through the door, through the torn veil, to the supernal triangle above once we have achieved the great work, or we're permitted access to the supernal triangle. I'm going to talk about what all that means. But looking at the 3 Hebrew letters, in this particular array, the Ari array, they use the 3 mother letters on the horizontal bars, whereas in the standard Western Hermetic array, they do not. Aleph, which is, in this case, that's the character connecting 4 with 5. That's the first character in the Hebrew alphabet. In the standard array, or the Western Hermetical array, that is connecting spheres 1 and 2, because it is the first Hebrew letter. It was denoted to connect the first and second spheroth. So both of those have perfectly logical reasons for being in what place they are. One's mathematical, whereas in Ari, these are based off of the category of the letters themselves. So how does this, again, we're going to circle back, how does this deal with Freemasonry? Well, Freemasonry, the Blue Lodge, what you guys are going through, deals with the alchemical process. Of course, it's an abbreviated alchemical process because no one gets through the entire lesser mysteries and purifies their character in months or a couple years. This is something that takes lifetimes to accomplish, but you're getting a condensed version of lessons or and what have you that will begin to work on your, purifying your soul, purifying your character. We start off uninitiated in Malkuth, number 10, and Malkuth represents the element earth. So some jurisdictions you'll experience Malkuth and others you won't. But we'll just say going in, you're made of earth, we live on earth. That is the profane. And upon initiating, upon reaching the first degree, and again, I'm not talking about any secrets, I'm not going over anything that's really even discussed. These are all things you have to look deeper into, and I'm giving you a very brief summary, and I would strongly encourage you to do some research on your own on this. But we are going to move up to that first triangle, 7, 8, and 9. Now, 7, 8, and 9 is dominated by, no, maybe dominate's not the right word. The mother letter there is mem, which represents the element of water. Okay, so you can see that on the image to my, on this video as well. The paths are a little bit different, but those 3 triangles or those 3 spheroth are in the same basic spot, and the colors they're using are also the queen scale. So that purple sphere, number 9, that's Yesod, that's the foundation. That's where, once we get initiated, we are said to reach the foundation. We are brought to the astral. And the astral plane, in esoteric terms, is the last place we have a body, quote unquote, for. There's a material realm, an etheric realm which surrounds us, and then the astral realm which we have a body for. And beyond that, we're developing our capabilities if you follow esoteric principles. So Yesod is the house of illusions. It is the astral sea. It is governed by water. And to its right and to its left, we have on this side, on the white pillar side, we have Nesak, and I can't pronounce these correctly to save my life, but that is the sphere that dictates our emotions. And over here, the orange sphere on the black pillar, that is Hod. Now, that represents our reasoning and our intellect, our logic. And what this is a triangle, and what we want to do is we need to bring balance. We want to walk up this middle pillar. The middle pillar keeps the other 2 pillars on the side balanced. So the lesson here, what we want to do is first of all, we need to quiet the noise of our logical mind saying all this is, none of this is real. If it's not in front of me in my 5 senses, it's not real. And over here, we need to quiet our emotions, and all those bring us together to take the first steps up the staircase to the next level. The whole point of the first degree to me, in the alchemical sense, is mastering water. Now, earth represents us. Water represents our emotions. We must master our emotions, because if we cannot master our emotions, we can't continue to ascend. We let our emotions drag us down. It makes us do stupid things. It makes us make bad decisions. It makes us do impulsive decisions that cost us later. We have to master our emotions. That is water. That is the first degree. Master your emotions. And once you can do that, you are metaphorically said to be able to walk on water. Maybe you've heard that phrase before. Maybe a certain individual you've read about walked on water. Maybe the holy texts are metaphors for the same things that Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism teaches. Could be. Walking on water means you've mastered your emotions, and it can no longer drag you down and drown you. And once you've done that, well, you're ready to move up to the second degree. In the second degree, the mother letter is Aleph. And that triangle, 4, 5, and 6, that is known as the moral triangle. So this is ruled by air, the air element. And the air element is our mind. So we've mastered our heart. Now we have to master our mind. This is where learning comes into play. This is where study comes into play. This is where curiosity comes into play. And what we have to also need to do is, again, this is a balancing act. You're trying to stay in that middle pillar. You have over here in the red sphere, Qabalah. Qabalah is the sphere of strength, ruled by Mars, war, but it's also the sphere of chaos and destruction. This leads people to ask, why on earth is that on the tree of life? That sounds bad. Well, no, it's not actually, because that's a part of human nature, number one. But number two, there are times in our lives where we have to have the strength to cut away things that are bad for us, are diseased. We need to get rid of it. And that's what this sphere represents. Now over here, on the other side, we have Chesed, which is mercy and compassion and love, beauty. Well, it's actually not beauty, because Tifereth, number 6, the golden sphere, represents your heart. That's beauty. That's the middle chamber that we strive to reach and bring all that into clarity, bring that air element into clarity. So we start at the earth. We decompose and die in the alchemical sense. We blacken. The earth is our funeral of our earthly self. We are initiated and elevated to the water phase, where that death is placed in water, and we dissolve it. We dissolve that icky stuff. And then we're going to extract it. We're going to extract the good things out of it. We're actually going to take what's left of the dead stuff, and we're going to distill that even more in the alchemical sense. And we are going to come up with a golden substance that will then, when we're ready, the veil is torn in the middle chamber. We will have the opportunity to walk the path to Sephiroth number 1 across the abyss to the supernal triangle, 1, 2, and 3. In the supernal triangle, its mother letter is Shim. And Shim is fire. It's the fire element. So this pure whitening of the dead turns to a golden color. Now it's going to reach its reddish color. And we are at the supernal, the third level. And at the supernal level, this is where you're a master of your being, your essence. Number 1, the white sphere is Keter. That is the divine. That is your higher self. That is reuniting your lower self with the higher self, which is the great works, primary objective. To your right and to your left, over here, we have Bina. Now, Bina is the black Sephiroth on the black pillar. It is feminine. It is the image, Mother Superior, the nun, Saturn, Father Time. Some of you that might ring some bells to you, image-wise. This means understanding. Other side, the gray Spheroth. That's masculine. That's Chakma or Hokma. And that's wisdom. And what those two things mean is you must have wisdom and understanding. And that was where the hidden Sephiroth Da'at comes from, which is knowledge. Knowledge by itself is useless. Knowledge with both wisdom and understanding, that's the key. And those three things form the supernal, which, by the way, the supernal itself is genderless. You need both masculine and feminine to come together equally. And that represents the 3 degrees. So that is how the Tree of Life and alchemy at a very basic level come together to work in Freemasonry. And again, the Rosicrucians go through a little bit more of a detailed path because each Spheroth in the Tree of Life is a degree, whereas Freemasons, it's a little bit more, it's simplified. They're both very deep if you get into them as such. That's up to you. You get into it as deep as you want to get into it, or you can do other things, and that's equally fine. That's the beauty of Freemasonry itself. You don't have to be an esoteric to be a good Freemason. You don't have to be esoteric to get anything out of Freemasonry. It's just one path of many. So I'm not trying to promote this path as being the way you're supposed to go. It is one path of many. It's just the one that I myself sit on. I hope this little rundown was useful for you. I do want to get into the spheres more in depth. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, or to do them justice. The Qabalah is something you can study for a lifetime and still only scratch the surface after all. So this is a good, I think, primer for me to take the whole Tree of Life, discuss it. There's multiple versions of it, and kind of relate that to Freemasonry in general. I hope you liked it. If you have any comments, please leave them. And I enjoy the conversation. If you like the video, give me a like. If you like this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. And there will be more as usual. Please stay safe. It's fall. The equinox has passed. This is a time of harvest. I hope that the fields you have sown bring you great bounty and wealth this season. Until next time, thank you.